What does the bottom of the pyramid mean? This is an Indian, first he worked at a company, then he became an academic, then he moved to the United States, but his ideas were inspired by what he saw in India and ultimately proven to work there. What is the bottom of the pyramid?
So the bottom of the pyramid, it has the most amount of the population, and it is not the richest. They're the poorest, and marketing to the bottom of the pyramid is something that's cheap, like a water filter, where you sell it to them, and you are helping them, and you're also making a profit.
No, you got it pretty much right.
Okay.
Prahalad's big vision was, look, most of the world is poor compared to us, right? According to World Bank statistics that more or less haven't changed in years, you got roughly 2 billion people living on less than $2 a day, roughly 1 billion living on less than $1 a day. Just within India, the population that we would consider very, very, very poor is 800 million out of that 1.2 billion. He said, stop looking at the poor world as just a charity case. Start looking at it as a market. Some people have challenged this point of view, but there are some examples where this has been shown to work, where you're both saving the world and selling a product. Do you remember another example? You remember water filters?
Soap.
Soap! I finally remembered. I forgot, like, for an entire semester to bring examples of this. This is Lifebuoy soap. Hindustan Unilever, came up with the idea that, wait, how did they come up with this idea of small little packages of soap?
That many children, especially in India, die from unsanitary circumstances. So selling it to the women also employed a lot of women to sell soap to other women to help save a lot of children.
Fundamental problem, and this is goes to in relation to the next topic I was going to talk about. The sweet spot in strategy, sustainable business strategy, is looking for world problems around you and asking yourself what the core mission of your business is, core activity of your business. The overlap is where you should be investing in new products. So, another little statistic that reflects reality. We all commemorated 9/11, very sad day. Roughly 3,000 people died. It's 10 times that every day that die from very preventable causes. Children dying from very preventable causes, like malaria or diarrhea or tuberculosis. 10 9/11s every day of children for reasons that are very easily preventable, for less than $1 or $2 a day, right? One of the connections between marketing to the bottom of the pyramid and the sweet spot is it's a lot of the world's poor that die for these easily preventable causes, right? So the big point of the bottom of the pyramid, look at the world's poor. And from that idea came things like packaging small packages of soap that you can then hire those same unemployed poor people in those communities to help sell it. So you're solving the problem of unemployment, you're solving the problems with sanitation, and you're saving thousands of lives per day as a company and making money at it. The other example that was demonstrated to work right next door to India and also works in India is Microcredit. How many people have heard of Grameen Bank and Microcredit in general? Grameen Bank got all the spotlight and attention, and the Nobel Prize winner is affiliated. And they're in Bangladesh, which used to be part of India. India also has microcredit systems in place. Nobody's asking me what microcredit is.
What's microcredit?
Excellent. Great, very good question. Microcredit is when you give tiny loans to people that are very poor. And when this was first proposed, people said that's crazy. You don't give loans to people unless they have what? Even if they don't have money, they're typically asking for money because they don't have enough, right? But what do you want to make sure that a borrower has that you can seize in case they can't pay? Assets, property. So what are you going to do going into poor slums full of Indian women, offering them small loans? What are the chances they're going to pay you back? The naysayers said, well, why should they pay you back? They have no collateral, right? The logic was, and take it or leave it, this was the logic. If we make the loans between woman to woman, they value relationships. Guys are jerks, right? But women value their relationships, right? They will likely use a small loan to buy maybe extra sewing equipment and start literally a cottage industry in their home, maybe repairing clothing, or they'll think of something else entrepreneurial, and they'll eventually pay you back with a little bit of interest, and you'll make money on this. That was the logic. People laughed at the idea. It actually works. In fact, the repayment rate is sometimes higher between poor brown women than among rich white guys. Donald Trump knows bankruptcy law, right? Rich white first world companies file for bankruptcy to get away from having to pay all their loan obligations. Nothing fancy like that goes on where a place like Grameen Bank operates, right? So the repayment rate actually turned out to be better than in some parts of the first world. All right, so that's microcredit, another example of an Indian idea that succeeded and is now a model for the rest of the world. In fact, even some of the large corporate banks realize this is a market, not as maybe profitable per loan, but it's still worth hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly billions eventually. So even large banks are getting involved in microcredit as a business line. Related to bottom of the pyramid is a creative solution for getting around a big problem in supply chains. This is roughly what India looks like, right? All over India, ITC had farmers that created the raw material that's needed for their food and tobacco products. What's the disadvantage of having all these millions of villagers having to bring product to a middleman who then takes it to your factory? What does the middleman pay the poor farmer? As close to nothing as possible. How much does the middleman charge ITC? As much as possible. Does anybody want to guess how ITC solved this problem?
Cut the middleman.
Cut the middleman. There's a situation that you're familiar with. How many people have bought a plane ticket in the last year? Did anybody go to one of those things that we used to have called a middleman in travel? What were they called?
Travel agency.
Travel agency? We've seen the one go out of business, Liberty Travel around the corner. Oh, why are they going out of business? Why don't we use them?
Website with kayak and stuff like that. The internet.
The internet, basically, is the one-word answer, right? We go, we find out the prices rapidly. Well, we have a website that compares rapidly all the available ticket options. We don't need the middleman. And the middleman was doing what? How are they making their salary and making rent? They had a monopoly on information, and they service. So ITC came up with the idea of what? What do you give all these poor farmers? Huh? It sounds crazy, but what if we were to give internet kiosks to thousands of Indian villages? What would happen?
Share information.
That we would find out more accurately what the fair price is, not just in India. What do poor farmers start doing now when they wake up in the middle of India, in the middle of some rural poor area? What can they check?
Weather.
Weather. They can harvest earlier if a big bad storm is coming, it's going to ruin your crops. So actually productivity has gone up. They can also figure out prices on seeds. What happens when the supply goes up? When the farmers start producing more? The prices ultimately for ITC go down. So you actually have a better functioning market, right? What's another benefit, side benefit? These farmers watch the futures prices on the Chicago Commodities Exchange and know what the future trend lines are probably going to be for various products. If I see that corn is falling, soybeans are going up, the investors think that the price is going to double in the next year. What am I going to start planting? Soybeans. What does that do to the market? More soybeans brings down the price. So actually, this helps everybody in the market. The only people that hurt were the middlemen. They can't scam both sides as much as before, right?
But isn't that like less jobs?
Well, arguably in the rural sector, if they're doing better, there's more work. The middlemen still have their function of buying, transporting, selling. They just can't scam as much. Their profit margins got hurt. They might not have quite as nice a house. They're the ones who got hurt in this. On the other hand, you have 1.2 billion people who eat in India who now have better food prices, right? Also better cigarette prices. ITC still makes cigarettes, full disclosure. But they diversify. Okay.
And the cell phone guy is making money.
I'm sorry?
The cell phone guy.
Oh, yeah. The IT salespeople. Maybe the only problem is related to e-waste. E-Chupals, by the way, this is an old term for village marketplace, right? Chupal is a village marketplace in Hindi? Chupal. Okay.
It's really for people to get together.
So it means like an old village square where we might meet, exchange information, and sell stuff. So e-Chupals are a great idea. Maybe the only problem related to it that hasn't been solved completely is e-waste. But in my last few slides related to sustainability, we'll see that actually there are at least 2 Indian companies that are ahead of some of ours in terms of eliminating toxics from electronics. It's a huge problem that a lot of the world doesn't even know about, that all of our electronics contain toxins. If they're burned or entering the water supply, they can kill you. The materials in your electronics can kill you. And we don't have responsible laws or business practices for taking care of all of our e-waste. All right, so a few more examples of sustainability. We'll cover a few examples related, thank you, to health and, well, health in general and happiness. And then I'll take questions and we can have a free-floating discussion. Suzlon Energy is the fourth largest wind turbine maker and one of the first. You'd think more wind makers would do this. It sounds like a pretty good promotion for their product. They're the first to have a 100% wind-powered factory to make their windmills. Tata, no discussion of responsible, sustainable Indian business would be appropriate without mentioning Tata. They're kind of like the, take your pick, the combination of Kellogg's, GM, and AT&T of India, right? Diversified into many, many, many products. One of their innovations is no lights are allowed during the day in one of their business divisions. Everything must be daylighted. So simple, right? But they've actually enforced it. And they actually shut their offices down on Saturdays. They want you to get your work done Monday through Friday. Be more efficient, right? The advantage, of course, is that lower utility costs from not running your offices on Saturday. And especially if you frame this as, look, we're being a greener company. Our research here, done at UMass Dartmouth, we came up with a study that found that the greener a company's reputation is, the happier the employees are. And it has a bigger impact on happiness than even profitability. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're both paying less for utilities, you're making happier employees. Oh, by the way, you're also saving the world to some extent. All right, so here are the 2 companies, if you want to look them up later, that are involved in producing more energy efficient and less toxic electronics. The first that I know of, example of solar-powered ATMs, is in India. Now, so far we've been covering the business world, and we've been covering examples that have come from India. Again, if you talk to some people, like the director of the Indian Institute of Management or the CEO of ITC, they'll tell you that a lot of this is based on holistic thinking, which is an ancient Indic virtue, right? Compared to maybe more compartmentalized thinking of the West, right? We could maybe have a whole discussion of philosophy. I think somebody in an earlier series really expanded on that. But a lot of Western thinking and science has been based upon the compartmentalization of knowledge, the compartmentalization of study, right? That's how we become respected experts in a field. What we lose is a holistic overview. And one of the themes in sustainable business is you can't see the opportunities under your nose for being more efficient, making more money, not destroying the planet if you have such a compartmentalized view. The compartmentalized approach leads you to put on the blinders to seeing opportunities, right? Things like catching the rainwater that fall on your own bloody roof at Ford. wasn't done for decades, right? They were spending money on water. It took a financial crisis to get Ford, to their credit, ahead of GM and Chrysler, to do things like rainwater harvesting. But that's an example of Western thinking for everything great that we've ever accomplished being a little bit sick. I would even go so far as to say psychotic. And I would go so far as to say that a good business education traditionally has been teaching you how to be a functional psychotic. Don't worry about externalities, right? Focus on the bottom line, and everything will somehow take care of itself. But what if you could be making more if you actually were a little bit nicer to the environment or people, right? What if you look for those opportunities to see things as a system? What if, like the founder of Interface, who made the goal that we're going to be at zero environmental footprint, you actually took a step back from the big and looked at the big picture and realized I'm killing my own grandchildren with this pollution that I make, right? I'm going to go down the history books as a villain, not as a hero of business. Today I'm a hero of business. I'm CEO. I founded my company, Success. 2 generations, I'm going to be talked about as equivalent to a concentration camp guard. You knew what you were doing, or you could have known, and you didn't do anything to stop it. All right, moving on from sustainability. Happiness, mental health, and peace. Sound like also impossible goals, right? Kind of like running a business to have zero environmental impact, right? I really recommend this book. He can do a better job in a few hours of reading his book, talking about his mission and what he does with Indian wisdom than I could ever do. But this is one of the first engineers at Google, Jade Meng Tan. He goes by Meng. He's now established credibility, but when I tell you what his vision is, you're going to think he's a quack. One of the first engineers at Google started getting interested in meditation and world peace, and he sees his role in life as, first of all, having founded a free meditation course that they take at Google that increases productivity, happiness, and people getting along and, well, doing a better job at work. But also he considers that if it becomes ingrained in every business on the planet as something obvious that you should do every day, meditate a little bit, relax, get along with people, that he's going to plant the seeds of world peace in his lifetime. Sound crazy? How many people think that sounds a little bit nutty? He has a TED Talk online, you can look him up. It's a great book, and even if you don't believe that he's ever going to achieve his goal, I really recommend reading the book just for the insight of what Google did with ancient Indian-inspired meditation practices. And he goes into some of the details of how they use them, how they've made them adaptable to the corporate world. Google is not a charity and it's not a temple, right? It's a business. But they've adapted it so that it actually serves the function of making people happier and more productive at work. Why wouldn't you do that? Right? So, I leave it to you to read the book. I did find his TED Talk, and I can play 3 minutes of it if there's time. One of the things that he cites is mindfulness and Vipassana meditation, which have their origins in India. You could argue that one of the theses of his book is also inspired by Gandhi's thinking. If you want to see change in the world, you have to embody that change. You can't force it upon others, but you can master yourself and basically start world peace from within. Physical health. This used to be considered nutty 50 years ago. Just like what Meng is talking about today is considered nutty, maybe, to the uninitiated. Yoga sounded pretty nutty at one point. How many people now accept that yoga has health benefits? Wow. Welcome to the world of nutty people as of 50 years ago, right? Yes, stretching, breathing, assuming funky poses can improve your health, mood, well-being. It's free. In fact, you're missing a free yoga session right now. If you want to know when all the free yoga sessions are, look it up. Actually, you don't have to look it up. There it is. Live well, what we do, stress less. Right? It's also now being researched as being a sort of an added form of treating people with diseases. And I thought I'd end with another Indian invention, which is laughter yoga, which is even more quacky looking. But I've done it, And I can tell you, it is fun. If you have a chance to do it once in your life, you'll never regret it. Do you guys want to see videos? First of all, 3 minutes of Meng talking about his vision, starting with what he did at Google, and then we can end with laughter yoga. We'll go out with a laugh. All right. Before I do that, are there any questions? Yes, Godwin.
You are sounding as if happiness is such a good thing.
I can tell you as somebody who spends a lot of time unhappy, happiness definitely seems like a nice thing when I have it. So what do you think? Is happiness not a good thing for you?
Well, if everyone pursues happiness, I just wonder where we all end up.
Depends what kind of happiness.
Is there time to be unhappy?
We could really get into a philosophical discussion.
Of our grave.
If happiness takes the form of Western modeled consumption, unbridled consumption, we're doomed. We know that. We already see the trend lines, right? Maybe another piece of Indic wisdom is to look for happiness in the simple things around you. Simplify like Gandhi did. Take care of your own local environment, your own local people. Think globally, act locally is not a new term created in Concord, Massachusetts, right? I think it was championed and demonstrated much more authentically in India. Doing my best to tie the answer into India, you see. But I think in all seriousness, I think happiness, it depends what kind of happiness. If we pursue the right kind of happiness, to quote Aristotle, all right, not quite Indian, but if it's the right kind of happiness, happiness in our work, that we do something productive that helps others, happiness in our relations with other people, happiness in the simple things, maybe we might save ourselves. How's that for an answer? Sound good? Depends what kind of happiness. You guys want to see a quick few minutes of Meng? Any other questions or comments?
No, there are people watching you online.
Oh, and they have questions?
And there are already some questions.
Oh, jeez.
So,
Hi.
One question is, what role do you see in reducing the needs of the population in developing better sustainability?
Reducing needs as...
Reducing the needs of the population in developing better sustainability. What role do you see in reducing the needs of the population?
I think that's related
rather
to...
than reducing the population.
That's related to, I think, what Godwin was talking about, which is that if we pursue the wrong kind of happiness, totally unbridled consumption as the only means by which we try to get happiness, and we know it's short term. The second you buy that new gadget, you get tired of it, you throw it out. Yeah, the person's probably onto something, that reducing consumption to some extent might be part of the solution. The other argument would be don't reduce consumption of goods and services, but produce those goods and services in a better way.
So there's a follow-up question related to that. So how would this affect the principle of business capitalism?
To some people, it's a threatening idea, because it would undermine this belief that we have that the only measure of economic prosperity is growth. How many people have heard that, oh, the economy is growing, and that's a good thing? Oh, the economy stalled, it's shrinking, that's a bad thing. It's really hardwired into modern capitalism that GDP growth, more production, more consumption are good, and stepping away from that is a threat. There could be an answer that we need to redefine what happiness or redefine what economic success is. There's one country on the planet that has a gross happiness index. Instead of going by GDP, they go by their happiness index, Bhutan. Wouldn't it be interesting if we started measuring happiness, self-reported happiness, and reporting it and watching what happens to it in the United States over time? And what would impact that in a positive way versus a negative way? To answer the question, yeah, it's somewhat a threat to capitalism to say that maybe we ought to reduce consumption. The other answer would be, no, we can continue to produce a lot of things if we figure out how to produce them with less negative side effects. If you can figure out how to make a car with a minimal amount of toxics, whatever toxics are used are recovered and not released, you don't burn anything that releases carbon in the course of production or usage, arguably you have a zero footprint car and you've achieved sustainability without necessarily killing the car industry, right? So there's two answers. One is, yeah, maybe it's fundamentally threatening from one perspective. Another is, let's just figure out how to do things in a way that doesn't kill ourselves. And Interface has shown that they can do that with carpet tiles, which are exclusively fossil fuel raw materials sourced as of 10 years ago. So if they could do that for a value chain that's based on fossil fuel, petroleum, we should be able to do it with other products and services. Another question?
Other question?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, doesn't the world already make enough food for everybody though, and like, it's not distributed evenly, so under capitalism, even if we make more products, like, I feel like the people who are just the wealthy will just have more products.
Okay, so first of all,